Out here on a backpacking trip, let's go ahead and take a look at the BHK Highlander. I forgot a spoon. I tend to do that. Found a piece of wood that I want to make a spoon out of using the BHK Highlander today. Let's talk about the blade portion first. It's 3/16 thick. It's a 5-inch blade, and this is 01 tool steel. And I'm really starting to dig the tool steel. It does, as far as how it sharpens, I say this about more of the premium steels, is they're not necessarily harder to sharpen, they just take longer to sharpen. But again, as a result, they'll hold an edge a lot longer and a lot finer edge. You can see that it's got a coating on it. This is actually gun bluing. You can get that with or without. The gun bluing does cost a little bit extra, but just for the overall looks of this knife, that's kind of what I wanted to go for on this. Drop point blade, and the grind is a full flat on this guy. You can get the hollow grind, saber grind. I think you can get a Scandi as well. So it comes in several different grinds that you can specify when you're purchasing your knife. I wanted to show you guys the spine on this and how it throws sparks. It's got an awesome 90-degree spine on this. That thing throws some wicked sparks. I've actually been out and I was trying to start a fire with a smaller knife that I had, and it threw okay sparks from the spine, but I just couldn't get my feather stick started. I got this on it, and man, it throws so many sparks off that I had no problem getting the fire started. Now, one thing to note on the spine, and this is a very, very minor point, is that when I'm doing some carving and I'm using that other thumb or whatever thumb for leverage, sometimes you can feel that 90-degree spine on there. Not a deal breaker for me, not a big issue. And again, people ask, hey, give me that 90-degree spine. So you can't have both. But again, it's very minor, really doesn't bother me, but it is something of note. Now let's go ahead and talk about the handles on these. These are actually a broomstick style, so it's completely round, and they're a little bit different than what many people might be used to, but man, I find it extremely ergonomic. And one thing while I'm thinking about it, the fit and finish on this is phenomenal. If we get a nice close-up look at this, you can see that there is just no high spots from the spine to the handles all the way across. The craftsmanship on this blade is just outstanding. So again, you can start to customize the handle portions of it with different colors. You can go with some inserts. So what I did is I went with the black bead blasted with red inserts on this. And again, the ergos on this are really nice. It might be a little bit different than you're used to if you're used to more of the flat scales as they're on there, but it's just so comfortable to use. It does have a little bit of jimping on that spine right there too, and there's not a lot of it, and it's not overly aggressive, but it's certainly enough to lock your thumb in when you're putting the thumb on the spine. Again, it's that perfect happy medium in my mind, what I think most people will like. Personally, I really like it. You can see the handles are pinned together, so you're not going to be able to take the handle scales off. You do have a nice lanyard hole, very generously sized in the back there if you want to put a lanyard on there. But again, I cannot stress, for me personally, I really like the ergos of this knife. This is quite quickly becoming one of my favorite knives in my collection. I really like it that much, and I might as well let the cat out of the bag now. Earlier I talked about I did something after only a week of having this knife. So again, BHK did send me this knife for review, but after only a week of playing with it, I jumped on their website and I ordered another knife, and I'll roll in some footage of that one. I liked it so much. So I purchased my own knife from them. I liked it so much. I was actually going to buy another knife, and instead I got that little Highlander, or that little other BHK knife. Let's talk about the sheath. Far too often the sheath is something that I feel is neglected by many companies. You got this great knife and a really crappy sheath. With this sheath, you've actually got a lot of different options. I think the standard is just a normal kind of a hip belt sheath, and you also have a dangler, which is what I have, and also a Kydex with some leather backing. That one particularly has a place for a fire steel on it. But what I've been using mostly, which is a little bit odd for me because I typically like the Kydex, I have been using the dangler and I absolutely love it. The dangler, man, I'm loving it. It's out of the way, it's easy to get to, it's I really like the sheath, the dangler sheath. But this one, that dangler, man, I'm just fell in love with it. I love how it kind of swings freely down. I love how it's easy to access. And honestly, you can actually run a gun and then drop the sheath underneath it. So now you don't have to have the knife on the left-hand side. You can still keep it on your dominant side. Something that personally I find convenient when I'm out here. Have taken it on several backpacking trips and just used it a ton. And I gotta be honest with you guys, I really like this knife. The ergos, the overall fit and finish, the look, for me especially, if you guys don't know, that 5 inches is kind of my ideal carry blade. I really like the knife. The one thing is, I can't remember exactly what the weight is, but it is a heavy knife for its size. And honestly, one of my first things I thought, well, you know, probably won't take it backpacking much. The next 2 backpacking trips I went on, this one came with me. I just didn't care. I like it that much. But again, that is something to note. Its weight is a little bit heavy. So if I'm going to go on a huge long backpacking trip where I'm really counting the ounces, yeah, I'd probably leave this one home in lieu of something a little lighter. But having said that, I really like the knife, and these type of backpacking trips have no problem bringing it. Price on this bad boy is coming in at $200. Now, a lot of you might say, you know what, I can buy a knife that's half that much and it's going to cut just as good. You know what, it probably will. Depending on what kind of steel you get and of course the heat treat, the edge may not last as long, but yeah, I totally get that point. I see this knife as more of somebody who's kind of accrued those knives and is looking for that next step. And for me, the fit and finish, the quality on it, when you've acquired all those other knives and you're ready to go this route, this is a fantastic blade, and I really encourage you guys to look at it if you're looking for something like that. Again, it's quickly becoming one of my favorite blades in my collection, with the sheath option, with the overall ergos, the edge retention, the spine on the knife, despite it being a little bit sharp when you're putting your thumb on there. Honestly, I wouldn't change that. It's got a nice fine tip on it for work. I've had a hard time letting this knife kind of sit aside while I go on to test other knives. I don't want to set it aside. I like it that much. So go ahead and take a look at this knife, guys. BHK Highlander. It's a great one in my book.